Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Zoom In. Today, we're going to zoom in on matters education. Now, how we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to go about with the current situation. COVID-19 has been with us for a while. It's still here with us. How are we supposed to go on? Recently, we had an announcement in our country, Kenya, that schools will not be resuming until January. How are we supposed to go on? I'm your host, Titus Munjalu, and with me, I have GILLIAN CHERUIYOT. Kindly say hi, GILLIAN.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Welcome so much, GILLIAN. We also have Saya Jackson. Now, Saya Jackson is an evangelist, a scientist. He comes to us from Nairobi. Kindly say hi, Saya Jackson.
Hi, everyone, and pleasure being
Hi,
here.
Saya.
All right, welcome. Then we also have Kevin Gitonga. Kevin Gitonga is a student. Kevin, kindly say hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to
Hi.
hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin, welcome. Then we have with us also Magunga Itchan, who is Magunga Itchan is a teacher. Welcome, Magunga.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone.
Hi to you.
Hi.
Then lastly but not least, we have Annabel Sibilan. Now, Annabel Sibilan is coming to us from Indonesia, where she is a student. Welcome, Annabel.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Hello.
Hi.
All right. With us, with you, our dear viewer, wherever you are watching us from, welcome so much on board. Now, we have a problem. COVID-19 is with us. How are we supposed to conduct ourselves? Now, our pupils, our students are back at home for quite a while. We want now to zoom in on the idea of online education. What is the way? How do we go about it? Is it really realistic when we talk about studying online? Now, I just want to invite GILLIAN CHERUIYOT. I understand you are a parent, you have a student, they are in school, but they are now back at home. How do we handle the situation? All right, how does this online education take you as a parent?
Okay, I'm a parent of two, but it's only one who is on the online program. He's young, he's 4 years. It sounds so awkward, but the school introduced an online classes that are done like around 3 hours of 1 hour and a half break, then another 1 hour. It's not easy for the child because young children with the concentration span, they concentrate very briefly and then they switch off. Looking at the screen also has its own challenges with the eyes, and the school says you have to attend and they have to be there. So it's not easy, number one. Kenya has a problem of power. That's the major problem we have. Today, power is there. Tomorrow, there's no power. And we depend on power for the laptops. We depend on power for the internet. And when there's no power, there's no class. So I remember there's a time we had no power for like 2 days, the entire area, and he missed classes for the entire time. So it has so many challenges for the child, and it's also tricky at the same time because for the young ones, you have to be there. And when you're not there, there's little learning taking place because you have to monitor, you have to see what he's learning. Sometimes when he's off, he wants to play with the others, you have to bring him back. There's a lot of monitoring. So but for the parents that are not there, I'm not sure if there's learning taking place.
You're not very sure if there's learning taking place.
Yeah, when I look at mine, I'm not sure if when the parent is not there, there's learning.
That sounds a bit interesting. But now, let's kind of understand what this online education entails. Now, at this point, I want to invite Jackson Saya. What does online education entail?
There's a technical way and there's just a simple way. It's the simple way is the two words. It's education and it's online. So it is, as opposed to being the normal face-to-face, I can reach out and touch you, way of me facilitating. It is now education facilitated via some form of technology, often digital. There's a whole continuum of it. So it could be from pre-recorded videos that have no human being intervening, so you just watch and do a couple of things, to something that is almost close to what we are doing now on this call. We could run a class this way, and there's something that meets in the middle where you watch some things on your own and a class is conducted for you online. So that's a simple way. The more technical or sophisticated way is, it is a process of acquiring a skill facilitated online. And online, as any learning experience has, it'll need to have three components. One is what you learn. The big word for that is called cognition. Then there's what you make. Using what you learn, what you make is called creation. And then the people you learn with or you make for, it's called community. So if it has those three components, being mediated on an online platform, it is online education: cognition, creation, and community. So you can learn anything from piano to a full master's degree or a PhD online.
Interesting. Fine. Now let's hear from Kevin Gitonga. Kevin is a student. So how does it take you, Kevin? I mean, when you're doing these things online, is there any difference? Is it really effective?
Well, to a certain extent, it's been really effective. You get to cover quite a lot compared to when you're in class, because the lecturer tends to move really fast. There's no distractions from people moving up and down and all that. So there's that sense of the lecturer pumping so much information in a very short time. Well, it's effective if that's positive for you, but if the things that you really need to process slowly, it's disadvantageous, because you have so much to do in a very short time before the next class happens. Then another thing is that physical interaction with the lecturer. You know, when in class, there are illustrations that the lecturer would best describe when you have a physical interaction with them. And also for the lecturer side, you know, them having a physical kind of class, there's that connection with them. But now, when you're online, you really don't know what's the response from the other side. Because funny thing is, most of the times when we go for online classes, we switch off our cameras and our audios. We just let the lecturer speak. That's the funny part of it. Yeah. And so, but on a positive, considering the situation we're in right now, it's really helped a lot of us who need to move instead of just remaining stagnant. Because looking at it, I was supposed to finish school in July. If it wasn't this week, it was last week. That's when I was supposed to finish school. But now, looking at the things, I haven't even done my first semester exams since March. And with that, the online classes have really helped us to cover what we couldn't cover when if there were no online classes. Just going back to school and starting from square zero. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Gitonga. Now let's listen in from Annabel. Annabel, I mean, how does it take you from your country? How do you go about with this thing, online education?
Well, here in Indonesia, mostly, I think for all countries, it's the same. I mean, from kindergarten to postgraduate classes are all done through online teaching right now. In my case, dentistry is a bit tricky when it comes to online classes because...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Here in Indonesia, I don't know back in Kenya how does dentistry go there, but in Indonesia, so the dentistry program is like for 4 years you go through undergraduate program. So you study theoretically dentistry for about 4 years, and after that you get your bachelor degree in dentistry. after that, you have to study postgraduate to get to be a dentist. So basically in postgraduate courses, it's like 80 to 90% is practical. So you have to do it in real life patients rather than just studying books and other stuff. So it's kind of hard for us right now, especially in our postgraduate courses, because all the requirements, we have to do it in real life patients, whereas online classes, it's difficult. It's not only difficult, it's impossible to do to practice in real life patients. So right now our school directors and the school hospitals are I believe they're doing their best to come up with a solution, because right now in my school in postgraduate there are around 300 students, and we are all technically on halt because we can't do anything in terms of practicing in real life patients. The teachers actually, they give out online classes, as in just to like refreshen our memories and just to keep it going. But mostly for the practice, it's kind of a problem right now. So
it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, we're praying about it right now.
All right, Itchan, what do you think?
I think it's becoming a challenge, because, like, as for me, who teaches public school, you realize that the government was trying to come up with a solution to illiteracy in the country.
Yes.
Which was referred to as 100% transition from primary school to secondary school. So you realize that quite a huge population of people, or let me say students, have been affected. Because like in my class, I was going to an extent of teaching even up to 70 students. That's a single stream. So you realize that in a single stream, when 70 students are affected, they can not all access the online classes. So you realize that quite a minimal percentage is going to benefit from the online classes. Like when the pandemic began, you realize that in my class, I formed a WhatsApp group to try and direct the students on what to do and what information I give them. But you realize that in a WhatsApp group, I end up even having only 10 students.
So it's not practically possible.
So it's not practically possible. And you realize that some of the students, they only depend on the government facilities. Like the government provide them with books. The government provides some amount of school fees. And therefore, these students cannot afford smartphones, laptops to access these online classes.
So the practicality of it is an issue that needs to be addressed, perhaps. Now let me bring in our sister CHERUIYOT GILLIAN. As a parent, how do you control the amount of time, or how do you control online activities of your kid or your child who is a student?
And so you have to be there to mute and unmute, the biggest problem. And then, number one, the problem is the concentration, I said.
Yes.
You have to be there to always put him back to the screen. Look at what the teacher is showing you. Look at what the other kids are answering. Because you can imagine a class of 15 to 20 kids. And then a teacher has to ask each and every child a question. So the other kids are waiting for the first one to finish reading number 1 to 20, number A to Z, you know. So what happens to this child who is seated waiting for the others to read? It takes the concentration out.
Yeah, true.
So that is a major problem when it comes to young ones. When it comes to the others, how the teacher manage time is very essential for the sake of the concentration part of it. If the teacher does not manage the time well and make sure all the kids are involved in that class, you lose a lot as a teacher because you'll not be able to achieve what you really want. So the time that and the interaction the teacher has, he has to make sure all the kids are on board. Because if you can imagine for a class that the teacher is teaching, then the video part is not there. We only do the audio. And the child knows the parent is not there, he's at home, he's watching cartoon. But the audio is on. And he's scared he plays back, answers very fast, and then goes back. So if there's nobody to monitor, I highly feel that for the young ones, achievement is not much. If there's nobody to help them or to guide them at home on the computer, it's hard for them. It's easy for them to switch, get to games and all that, all the other distractions around them. And if it's a parent who is at home, then maybe something will be achieved at the end of it.
All right, unless they are monitored and unless a parent is there to check on and to give control on what's supposed to be. Now, I want to invite us to ventilate a little bit about leave alone now the challenges that maybe come along with maybe the teaching that is done on TV for maybe the primary school students or pupils. Now, I want to focus on mambo ya online, simu, laptop and all that, using your phones, using the laptops and all that. Now we understand there are some dangers that come along with teenagers accessing phones, teenagers accessing internet. What are some of the challenges that might come in when we go along in that way? Itchan, you are a teacher. What's some of the challenges that might come in?
Yeah. One of the challenges that I've experienced with the online classes per se, you realize that these students are people who they are no longer meeting as they used to. Because in a normal school setup, you realize that these students are able to meet, they're able to interact, they're able to discuss some social issues. You realize that when they are at home and they get to meet online, they tend to discuss other things that are far or not related to the subject you want to discuss with them. So you realize that if maybe they are boys, they tend to start talking about football. Yeah, and also you realize that some of these students go to other extent of practicing some mischief because now they realize they are able to interact with their teacher through the online platform, and you're not able to punish them or do something that is injurious to them. So what they tend to do is you find a student, he even direct messages you, trying to tell you some naughty things. So these are some of the challenges that we experience on these social platforms.
Thank you, Itchan. Kevin, as a student, what are the challenges that perhaps you faced?
With the online classes?
Sorry?
Challenges I faced with the online classes?
Yes.
Just as I had stated earlier, it's, there's a thing about some of the courses as well. Just like it was mentioned, I do engineering, and there are things you really can't do online. It's also been mentioned that there are things you really need to have the physical touch with, like experiments. The experiments
that
you really have to do.
practical aspect of it.
Yeah, the practical aspect of the study.
Yes.
And it's very impossible. You could try maybe look at videos, but then you don't have the equipment to practice on your own. And it's proved a challenge to actually understand some of these things. Then there's also the thing of that interaction with the lecturer, just like that. So you may ask a question here on the online platform, but the way it's answered is not as effective as it would have been if it was a physical kind of interaction. And also the other side is, it's also been mentioned by the teacher, is not everyone can access these facilities. It's expensive. For a fact, it's expensive. You may end up using more than 100 bob a day if it's for various classes. And not everyone can afford that. One, not everyone can actually afford a smartphone which can access their video calls and all that. And you can also put it that the parents are also going through a hard time financially. And so when you need to attend a class and you probably don't have the finances to buy the bundles and all that, considering not everyone has Wi-Fi, it gets a bit challenging. Yeah.
All right. Jackson, what do you think are some of the challenges and what could be the possible remedies for those challenges?
So I think the challenges fall into two categories.
Yes.
One is logistical and the other one is moral. So logistical is some of the things the students are saying, like, hey, or the things Gillian is saying, hey, there's no power, there's money for the bundles and stuff. So a new cost is included into the education process or learning process. So that's basically the logistical. And then screen time and everything becomes a challenge. For me, that's one half. The second half is the more moral. Now, technology, my phone here has no morality. This plastic has no morality, but it'll acquire the morality depending with how I use it or misuse it. Screens, for instance, are very good, and the media we can consume there are very good at making us release dopamine. So whether it's video games, sexual content, stuff like that, releases a lot of dopamine. So the challenge that comes alongside is just that online learning is one tree in the forest called the online platform. So the morality challenge there is now when people begin being veered off into stuff that they shouldn't be doing or using or leveraging the platform to do. What are the solutions? So of course we will need solutions that will solve the logistic arm and then solutions that will solve the morality arm. So for me, I think, let me begin with the logistic is for the entrepreneurs in the house and the learning instructors. I think people like Gillian who studied education, I think this presents us a good challenge, and challenge is opportunity turned inside out. I think one of the next levels of opportunities will be people who can craft experiential online learning experiences. I've used experiential and experiences, forgive me for that. But what I'm saying is we will need to move away from talk and chalk online to people who can be able to make the online experience feel as close as possible to the real. So there's some work to be done there, but it also means whoever will solve that problem will make a killing. I think on the logistical bit depends with the learning institution and communities of faith. I think they could begin looking for ways to subsidize or to make, or people can pool. Like, so if we are in an A state and we are 5 of us, it doesn't make sense for us to have 5 struggling Wi-Fis. We could bring our 5 children in one room, that's social distance enough, and then we could be able to co-parent over there. And so instead of us spending 500 shillings on Wi-Fi, we can spend 100 bob and have all the 5 children there with their 5 parents possible. So we can also, so people can become creative on the logistical arm. Same thing for students. Instead of us being in 10 bed sitters in one place all attending classes, why not come 3 of us and co-share? And that would make maybe a way to do it, or use houses of worship are way bigger. What if we social distancing there and provide learning at scale there? I think on the morality side, people will need to be anchored in reasons for why they believe what they believe. And also, I think people who've gone into either media addiction or the pornographic addiction and other addictions that come through the media platforms may need a bit more specialized help to strengthen them through the process. And they will need the final solution, I think, for the morality is they will need replacers. So they will need not only to move from the things that are addicting them, but they need to be given legitimate alternatives that could be able to occupy their time. Those would be my opinion.
That's great. That is great. Now, we mentioned not once, but quite a number of times that there are those who are not able to have access, maybe to these digital platforms, maybe no access to internet, no access to electricity. What is supposed to be done unto them? Do we just leave them behind like that? Or there's anything that can be done? Now, I'll bring in Itchan. Itchan, because you're a teacher, kindly shed us more light. For those students, maybe you have a class of 70, only 60 or only 50 can access internet, or 50 can't access internet. What are some of the measures that perhaps you will advise to be done?
Yeah, thank you. Because we've found ourselves into this challenge. So what I think should be done is that because we are creating leaders and teachers of tomorrow,
Yes.
we don't just teach them to pass exams and to get jobs. So what I suggest should be done, because some students are not able to access these facilities. Number one, the few who are able to access the online classes and online coaching should be taken through some activities that enable them to be also instructors. To say instructors, I mean that these students are able to go back to the society and coach the students who are not able to access such facilities. The second thing that I'm happy our government of Kenya had begun doing is providing free Wi-Fi. You realize that when there's something like free Wi-Fi, someone is able to go and think twice just to buy something like a smartphone, because already the government has cut some costs that you could have incurred. So it's better for the government also to chip in and to come up with the free facilities like the Wi-Fi. They can come up with the things like social halls where students can meet. So you realize that if each estate or each village has got a social hall, the students are able to meet, and the social distance can be kept. So it's not a must that students should go to school, but they can also meet at their estate levels so that they can discuss concerning school matters. Because you realize that these students, no matter school being closed, they still meet. I see many of them in the estates when they play video games. They gather to watch movies. They still party. So it's better the government through the local authorities like the chiefs to come up with the activities that can bond or can make these students to brainstorm, so that by the time we go back to school next year, they are not that bad. Yeah, that's my take on that.
I think it is important for the students to have this need of learning that he or she will learn by himself. I mean, I don't know the English word for it, but I mean, like,
I get you.
You know, like, I mean, you have books. There are, like, if one door closes, there are other doors that can open. There are many ways we can learn. We cannot only depend on online teaching right now, especially due to the circumstances that is happening. I mean, yeah, I think it is important for us to not be apathetic. We should be willing to learn. I mean, if our willing to learn before coronavirus happened was like 100%, right now it should be twice as much. There should be an effort in putting, because this is for our future, especially for us students. Like here, even though we're not, like in my case, even though we're not, we cannot really practice in patience, we are advised by our teachers to always watch videos through online. They will always send us links. They do everything they can to help us, and I think that's one of a blessing that is happening to us right now, because due to the circumstances, we're not really able to practice. But I think, the concern from us students to learn more and to be independent in learning as well. I think that's what.
That's great. Now, you realize that now the issue of online learning needs a lot of discipline. A lot of discipline indeed. Now, I'll invite GILLIAN to talk about what is the responsibility of a parent when we talk about online education. You as a parent, what is your responsibility per se?
The parent has a lot to do.
Yeah.
One, no matter the age of the child, and this reminds me of what the church has been talking about, the homeschooling. It's really practical when it comes to such situations. And as a parent, you really need to know what your children learn, even in school. Most of the time as parents, we leave everything to the teacher. To the extent I hear some parents threatening their children, I'll tell teacher, and then the child obeys the teacher more than the parent. So COVID-19 has taught me and many other parents that these kids are children more than they are to the teachers. And as a parent, you are 100% responsible of your child's learning and the discipline and everything. So with the internet or without the internet, learning can still take place. There are so many ways as a parent you can create activities for your child. There are work to be done in the house. We live with children who don't even know how to wash utensils, don't know even to fry an egg. So these are opportunities that if we use them now, we are going to build our children more than they were before. They'll be able to do other activities in the house, get a garden somewhere and dig, such small things that at the end of it actually makes the child all round. So I would say that it's important for us to look at this thing all rounded, and we'll be able to see even the weaknesses in our children. A child has talents that are not seen because of the schools they go. For example, a child with an interest in piano or other instruments can never be seen, maybe if he's in a public school of 100 children in a class. And there's no piano in that school. There's nothing like music class. The only thing that is there is a traditional dance. So I feel that we as parents have work to do. We have to open our eyes when it comes to our children and get to know who they are more.
Absolutely true. Now, we've talked about the online teaching and how it's done. Now, is it practically possible to gauge from the students if actually the effectiveness of the whole exercise? Maybe Jackson, you will help us. Is it practically possible to know if the student is really getting something out of it?
Yes, I'll say yes. I think there's an almost inherent bias in your question. Sorry to judge it. And the inherent bias is that evaluation of learning only happens through exams. The wider idea of how to evaluate learning is a very interesting subject that I've been pouring on and doing over the past few years. And the best evidence of learning is what we call artifacts. Let me explain it with a metaphor. If GILLIAN and I are having an argument that goes something like me telling GILLIAN, you can't cook ugali, and GILLIAN, as a full respecting African lady, saying like, what do you think? I can't cook ugali. That argument can go back and forth endlessly. Me saying you can't, her saying I can, you can't, I can. The only way to settle that argument is simple. Gillian just goes in the kitchen and cooks an ugali and brings it to me and tells me, what did you say? So when Gillian is presenting me the ugali,
yes,
I'm not going to ask her, show me your certificate for water boiling, show me your certificate for unga turning, show me your certificate for fire kindling. We all know that for you to get an ugali, all those things are done what? Are done. So the ugali becomes evidence of all the other things. So similarly, parents or people engaging in online learning or any learning experience, by the way, for that matter, can be able to use outputs. What it is that the learner, how the learner converts the information into insights and then implementation. So you evaluate the insights or you evaluate the outputs, the implementation. That's the best evidence. So at this point, if I've been home with my child for 3 months and we've been trying to learn parts of a flower online or whichever way, the simple way to evaluate if they're learning is just let's go pick flowers and let them see them rip it apart and tell you this is the petal, this is the sepals, this is the calyx, this is the corona, this is the pistil, or the way the rest of you are looking at me and thinking like, what are you saying now? Those are parts of a flower. You understand? And
so that means it will be coming from a parent, but not from the perspective of a teacher. How is a teacher able to evaluate?
Same way. It's the outputs that you need to put out. We have been baked in an education system that believes in exam almighty. That thing I sit down for 2 or 3 hours and write, that's the yardstick. That's a total lie. The best evaluation of learning is outputs. And outputs that are best are those that are able to show somebody has not just taken in information, but has converted them into insights and is able to change insights into implementation. So if my child, when we began the corona lockdown, could not wash their clothes, but now can wash their socks or their shirt, and I do not have to redo them, that child has made and is making progress. They're learning things about body hygiene. If a university student who's doing computer science began the lockdown without knowing how to do algorithms or how to declare classes or what have you, all I simply need to do is give them a simple experiment and tell them, design for me an app that's a calculator. If they're able to deliver that, that is progress. I'm able to know for them to produce that output, there are certain units of learning they've already internalized. So I think internally, we need to depart from the misbelief in exams. They actually are a very poor indicator of learning, and begin evaluating our own learning and the learning of children and the people around us based on the outputs they are able to deliver at the end of the day.
So that one will be taking us to another point of discussion, but maybe not for now.
Yes.
Now, understanding that now students will not be getting back to school anytime soon, especially in our country, Kenya, until January, because that was the announcement by the minister in charge of education. What are ways in which teachers who have been depending on teaching to survive, how are they going to survive? Mr. Itchan, how are you surviving?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I cannot deny the fact that it has become a challenge. But I'm happy because this pandemic has made us to think outside the box. By thinking outside the box, I mean you realize that quite a number of teachers only depend on their salaries.
Yes.
Yeah, so when you depend on your salary, in this instance, quite a number, like recently I was watching the national television and there was a story concerning teachers that many teachers are suffering from depression. So you realize that this pandemic has made us to think twice. Well, like personally, I've ventured into business because through business I'm able to move on with life.
What are you trading in?
Yeah, I'm happy to say that I'm a founder of a delivery company.
Oh, great.
Based in Kisumu. That's Amigos Errands company.
So
you realize that quite a number of teachers haven't been thinking of this until it reached this moment that we're experiencing. So, like when I meet my fellow teachers, I challenge them to just get something to do. Start it. Just start. It is through those small steps that one is able to get somewhere. So apart from that also, you realize that we can still make a living out of this teaching, because there are some students who need coaching while at home. There are some parents who are, they insist on education more than venturing into business. So you realize that some parents don't tell their students to engage on other activities, but they go an extra mile to contact the teachers. They tell the teacher to come at home, maybe you coach my child from home. So I've realized that you can make a living from such. Like there's a parent who was able to offer, let me say, 500 shillings for an hour. So you realize that
that's great.
when you coach even 10 students in a day, you are able to get some good amount of money. So as teachers, we just need to think outside the box and find solutions on how to deal with these tough times.
Okay, thank you so much, Itchan. Now, perhaps as we come to the close of our discussion today, I just want to ask, perhaps my sister Annabel, what are some of the advantages of online learning? Because we've seen the negative part of it and the challenges that come along with it. What are some tangible advantages that we can talk about that comes along with online learning?
Well, at first, advantages are, right now we can actually receive, well, in my case, we can actually receive classes anytime, anywhere, any place, and it wouldn't be a problem. I mean, I could be on a car with my mom going somewhere, and then whilst listening to a presentation from my doctors, for example, there's no limitation anymore. And I think that's an advantage for now, at least, where there's no excuse that we cannot receive education, even though we're like far from the city or inside the city, as long as we have the facilities and of course connection. I mean, the positive side is that we can learn anywhere, any place, at any time. And maybe also one thing that I noticed throughout our discussion tonight, right here, it's evening, is that I conclude that there are two types of education. There are actually the education that we receive in school, and also, like GILLIAN said, education we receive at home, which is also as important, because when we also read Ellen G. White's writings, Adventist Home, it is also important for the children to learn about duties in life. Like for girls, we should learn to cook, and so maybe for boys, stuff at home we could do. And I think this is the advantage of coronavirus and our lockdown right now, is for the children to actually dive into this home duties that we are, sometimes children tend to not do when we go to school. Maybe right now we have more time at home, we can practice those stuff, and it prepares us for the future when we start a family and stuff. And that's as important as education receive at school. And I think that is important as well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a fruitful discussion. We'll have loved to go on and go on, but I'm afraid our time is not with us. So I really appreciate for finding your time to join us. I believe then next time we'll also have another discussion. God bless you so much. Thank you, viewer, for tuning in. Zoom, we've had a great time, and we believe that God has blessed you through the discussions that we're having. Actually, what is most important is that we need to have an up-to-date with what is going on with our kids, at home right now. We need to make a follow-up, check on them exactly. We as parents and even as guardians, we have a role to play in all this. Till next time, God bless you.